Yesterday, it was announced that Sabrina Khan Williams, a teacher at Tilden Middle School, who was at the center of an investigation for her pro Hamas series of anti Semitic social media posts, had been suspended pending further investigation. Mark, MCPS spokesperson Chris Cam addressed the issue by saying, as a school community, we must condemn statements demeaning individuals or groups. Is that strong enough response from the school on this issue?
Well, I think it as I mentioned before, I think it does miss part of the challenge in this is that these issues are not simply a question of group versus group or grievance versus grievance. Look, a teacher is entitled to have opinion, and we're certainly not taking her First Amendment rights. The distinction to be drawn is really about Hamas's specific activities, attacking innocent civilians, holding hostages, just what can only be described as terrorism. And that is really beyond the pale of what is appropriate behavior at MCPS.
Well, it's a good question, Mark, because, and Mike, maybe you can address this. There is a balance between, freedom of speech, but also, I think government employees have, responsibility to recognize that sometimes they need to be more circumspect in what they say. Well, I'm not going to even getting into the specifics of what the teacher said. I was struck by the fact that many parents were so shocked by the statements that she made.
I struggle with this a little bit because I think that, and I think we're uniquely positioned as a community because we have such diversity in Montgomery County, and we have families who are directly affected on both sides of the issues. We have Jewish families, we have Arab families, Muslim families who know people who are trapped in the area today, and I think that creates a more visceral reaction. And so I think, to Mark's point, I agree. I think we need to step back and be able to be circumspect and focus on the humanity of the situation, and to denounce the deeds that are there. What Hamas did, I think, is horrible. That being said, there are humanitarian issues at play here that we also need to be able to talk about, is because we're people, and how do you take care of people in these challenging situations? And I think that this, points to, a situation where, not knowing very, very many of the specifics, an individual who clearly has a personal reaction to this situation and couldn't distinguish between that and her role in front of the classroom leading children and trying to be able to frame that broader issue. And I know that happens. Oftentimes we as people get stuck in those situations where we have to take a step back and say, I can't address this, or I shouldn't address this because I can't do it in the right way. And I think this is a situation where that didn't happen, and now there will be consequences.
Well, what was so shocking, I think, and as I read the comments from the parents, this was a team leader on diversity, equity, and inclusion that became unfiltered. And you would think that a person charged with those responsibilities would be more circumspect.
I think so, but I think also at the end of the day, people are people, and there are cords that get touched. There are buttons that get pushed. There are, not knowing her personal situation or who she knows, I think that happens. But I think that becomes the part, is we oftentimes can be pushed too far. The challenge is to be able to then pull yourself back and be able to say, I can't react to the situation in a way I should, and to not react at all, and to remove yourself from that situation. I think that's the challenge here, and I think that can be really hard for anyone. And I don't mean to defend that, because I think what she has said and what was quoted is not something that should be put out there. That being said, not knowing the fuller context, I think we need to recognize that, and how do you help people navigate through that situation?
Well, there definitely being, the controversy has definitely shown a rift in the school, obviously, and the feeling that there are, grievances and victims on both sides. Certainly. Where it's not clear cut. But is it the role of the school to try to address those, or should this be addressed in the home? Mark, I'll give you the last word on this.
Well, it's interesting, because I was at one point a Tilden in parents, and I recognize that the school has a role in, you know, having a conversation about issues like this, particularly when they're so heavily in the media, so front and center that kids are going to be talking about it. That said, as I said, I think I would push back on the values being expressed, and think that again, this is not just about competing groups. This is about values, and that would be what the conversation that I would have had with my Tilden student.
And
So
I guess the answer to your question,
the
say
reason
answer
I
to your
brought
question,
this
Casey, is
topic up
yes.
is specifically because it's in our community. I mean, these divisions are not just on the nightly news, on the national stage, not just limited to, you know, Pennsylvania or Columbia University. These are, you know, issues that affect us all.